Janwillem Acket is chief economist at Julius Baer and joins us live from Zurich. Thank you so much for joining us on the show. Now, it does look like it's going to be very, very tough from the National Swiss Bank to actually try and get the price of the Swiss down unless it actually pegs to the euro.
Well, indeed, that's quite a dilemma, because the experiences in the past, in the 70s, in the 78, 79 period, when the franc was going through the roof against the Deutschmark, well, these experiences have been actually very negative. So the prospects for the Swiss National Bank, either way it will go, are ugly. If they don't do anything going from now to what we've seen so far, well, we have to probably see a firmer franc ahead, because the backdrop, which is actually driving the franc, looks ugly. When I think of Euroland and I think of the US, and a world which is now worrying about recession, I mean, the Swiss macro backdrop still looks quite good. And if you have that image of being a champion, well, it's quite difficult for the National Bank to weaken anything.
But Janwillem, how much ammunition does actually the central bank still have? I mean, apart from weakening, the currency through injecting extra liquidity or pegging it to the euro, which can it do that for just a couple of months, or does it have to do it further? What else can it do if it doesn't have the consortium of other central banks that want to act with it?
Indeed, that's the great dilemma. At the moment, the other central banks, the big ones, are all actually preoccupied with their own difficulties and their own problems. Getting a coalition together that would support a Swiss National Bank in intervening for a weaker franc is already some task. I think we can only see a motivation for sister central banks to the National Bank of abstaining from any impeding measures that would hinder any weakening of the franc. I think the only motivation could be some undesired volatility that comes out of this franc strength. And that could be something that could motivate, for example, an ECB to just abstain from any quantitative easing measures or bad bank operations like buying bonds, so increasing the euro money volume, when the Swiss franc at the same moment is trying to do the same with the Swiss franc.
But the situation in Europe, it seems so dire at the moment. We had those terrible GDP figures out of Germany that actually it seems that the ECB, almost against its will, has to continue doing all it can to support the economy. So at the end of the day, will the Swiss National Bank have no choice but to peg to the euro, and will it do so in the next couple of months or even weeks?
Well, the choices are ugly, because if they go for a peg, they would have to throw quite a lot of money at the market. And when we're talking about a prospect in such an operation of throwing more than the entire volume of the Swiss GDP in terms of francs at the markets for a sustained period, in order to be credible, a unilateral intervention from a small central bank, as we have it here with the Swiss National Bank, is really quite a daunting task. If they don't do that, well, it's only a matter of time to see the figures in Switzerland turn ugly, and I think we probably would have to have a backdrop of Swiss data that looks really less favourable than today relative to the Eurozone in order to have a chance to weaken the franc. So either we go for a peg with a recession medium to longer term ahead, because you have to neutralise that probably with a restrictive policy, or you go for the current situation with a strong franc, which would drive the economy into a recession next year, with the consequence of having a deflation risk that is considerable, and you might even end up with a Japanese adventure.
Yeah, Janwillem, it's a really tough solution. I wanted to ask you, do you have any indication of how much actually Swiss businesses are losing money? You say that if things are as they stand at the moment for the next 12 months, and we're going to see a recession in Switzerland next year, are a lot of the companies already being very concerned about the situation?
Absolutely. Many companies, small and medium-sized ones that don't have the opportunities to diversify quickly away from this franc problem, are really on the brink of collapse. I mean, we see a lot of companies that are in the SMI and the SPI reporting nice figures, but these companies mostly can diversify away out of this franc problem by their affiliates, for example, in the Eurozone or elsewhere. If you're a small producer and you're absolutely franc-based, well, you're getting killed by a 30% rise of your currency if you export, for example, to the Eurozone.
Yeah, it's tough. Janwillem, thank you so much.
You can't live through that longer.
No, that you have to take action, of course. Janwillem, thank you. Janwillem Acket there from Julius Baer.